What's up, everybody? I am your host, a selfish boyfriend who gets excited about ghosts I don't believe in, and that is my co-host, a demon who attaches himself to hot college girls. And welcome to the Grindhouse Syndicate, where today we are going to possess your eardrums as we dive into two worlds that are close to our hearts: paranormal shit and found footage. On this episode, we are talking about Oren Peli's Paranormal Activity from 2009. So, after 2 weeks of camp slashers, Jordan here thought it was time for a little ghost action.
Boo.
And I just realized how sexual that sounded when it came out of my mouth.
Well,
No ghost sex on the show.
there is a lead in Paranormal Activity that I wouldn't mind watching that movie.
Well, if you're going to have ghost sex, you got to do it off the show's time. This is a no ghost
Can we
sex.
hire Katie, please?
So yeah, I haven't seen this movie in some time. I remember how huge it was when it came out. I feel like there was a lot of ghost stuff getting popular at that time. We had like a lot of found footage movies. We had ghost movies like The Fourth Kind, and A Haunting in Connecticut came out, I think, the same year. We also had the rise of ghost hunter shows and
Jesus.
psychic shows.
You gotta mention Zach Baggins.
Shit. I'm pretty sure that's when he came out.
Did you hear my door creak?
Yeah.
Centimeter. That's 100% proof.
You got to get away from me. Something's wrong with me. I'm going to punch you.
I just beat my cameraman's ass. Something came over me.
It was the rise of the paranormal obsession. That's at least how I look at it. So, very big time for paranormal things when this came out. I think this movie helped get that going. But yeah, man, especially the ghost hunter shows, like those were, I remember we watched, and it was like, I think it was the same year, what was it called? It was like they were in the college.
Oh, I think that predates this a little bit.
Yeah, I remember watching that though, being like excited because there weren't really ghost hunter shows at the time. And I remember us watching it around this time. And I feel like that was like one of the first big ghost hunter shows.
God damn it. What was the name of that?
Paranormal State.
Paranormal State, yeah. You know, I loved those shows as a kid and being into horror and paranormal, and then I kind of hate that stuff blew up now because so much of it's so cringy and faked and just awful TV, but still something you can put on in the background, even with Zach Baggins being in half of them. Just
yeah,
awful.
He sucks. So Paranormal State came out in 2007, so it's right in that time.
It was before this came out, but after it was filmed. It was in that 3-year window. Yeah, a lot of paranormal stuff. Yeah, I think that this was the time before it all got driven into the ground. I think every bit of the paranormal horror studios sucked it dry.
No, they always do.
We started just getting reruns of the same shit over and over again. But this was something different. This is something different from even the paranormal shit that we got before. This was very much Blair Witch with ghosts in a house. And
yeah,
man, I think it worked.
I agree.
It worked really good.
Also, some of you guys wanted us to go back to doing the news. Well, we're going to do a This Week in Horror kind of deal over on the Patreon. We're going to spend about 30 minutes or so going over all the kind of big info for that week. Also, some movies to watch out for, so you can catch us over there if you're into all that. The reason that we don't do it in the beginning of the episodes like we did a long time ago, because some people like that, was the episodes are recorded like a week to 2 weeks in advance, and you guys were getting your news about 2 weeks late sometimes. And we couldn't really talk about the stuff that we reported on because we still had another 2-hour episode to go over. So on this one, we're actually able to pick like 3 to 5 news stories that we think are really interesting, and we're actually able to sit and talk about them. We just recorded the first episode for it, and we actually got to sit and talk about kind of some of our issues or some of the things we liked about Scream. And I know a lot of people have wanted us to cover that movie, so that is coming eventually. But yeah, man, over there we can fucking just talk about whatever the hell we want. We want to say.
Yeah, I think there was some episodes in the beginning where we didn't really get into the movie until like 30 minutes in.
Yeah,
And I think that's a problem with when people see a movie they want to hear somebody talk about or coverage on. Some people don't want to sit through that. So I think being able to separate those two is a good thing.
yeah. We keep the Patreon like super cheap because we don't really we kind of use that over there to kind of do our more fun ideas. And we're not in it to try to like get a bunch of money or anything. We just want a place where we can have a good time and try different ideas out and stuff, but we still want to keep the big main episodes off of there, kind of do their own thing, and all that's free. But yeah, it's just like a place where we can just have a good time and do different cool fun stuff. So we're gonna do the news over there. That's where that is gonna be at. We've also been toying around with the idea of doing some videos going over some of these like really cool box sets and special releases that we have picked up. We got some really good ones. We got some not so great ones. Like a good example is neither one of us were really too excited about the version of The Heretic that we got from A24. uh,
I will say I haven't gotten to the special features yet, but the box itself
yeah.
was if you're going to make this special edition release and charge more money than what you would normally pay for it, don't put it in a paper box.
Yeah.
Please don't.
But on the flip side, the Arrow box set that I got for Hellraiser, amazing. A+, 100%.
Or that Umbrella Terrifier box set.
Yeah, so
that Umbrella always kills it with their box sets, I'll say that.
yeah, we want to kind of just talk about that. It'll actually be, if we do it, it'll actually be like videos. We want to actually show you the cool shit in the box sets. And then also, like, what's worth spending your money on? Like, we're big physical media guys. I'm sure some of you guys are as well. So we kind of just want to tossing around the idea of doing that. So let us know if you're interested in seeing that stuff. That will be, if we do it, it'll be on the Patreon, but it'll also be on the YouTube. So you can watch it for free. Like we just want to do physical media shit. So
There's a lot of different ideas too we've toyed around with.
we toured all across the country telling people our
Toured
ideas.
a lot of ideas. Like, doing franchises as a whole, episodes on franchises as a whole, maybe some tier rankings. We're really big into like the masks and costumes of some of the big slashers like Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street, and just kind of possibly going over like a tier list of the best looks and the best versions of those characters, the best people who's played those characters. So yeah, a lot of different ideas.
Yeah, it's all a work in progress. With that being said, though, are you ready to dive into Paranormal Activity?
I'm so ready to dive into Paranormal Activity.
Like a pool of blood.
I started talking and had nothing to fucking say there.
It's fine. All right, well, let's do it.
Hello, boys and ghouls. If you want to stay up to date on what's going on with the show, talk about or submit your movie requests, or just say die, then I got good news for you. You can always find us at one of our social media accounts or our official website at Grindhouse.Horror.Pod.com, Facecrook at the Grindhouse Syndicate Horror Podcast, Instascam at GrindhouseSyndicate.Horror.Pod, and many gore, which you can always find links for in the show notes as always. And you know what I always say, the morgue, the merrier. So please subscribe or follow for alerts on new episodes. Now, back to the show, kiddies. Frights, camera, action.
And if you really love us and don't want us to get possessed by Toby the Demon, give us a review. Paranormal Activity is a 2007 American supernatural horror film produced, written, directed, photographed, and edited by Oren Peli. He did a lot of jobs on this movie. It centers on a young couple, Katie and Micah, or is it Mika? It's Mika. Katie and Mika.
Yeah.
It's spelled kind of like Micah, though.
Oh, it's a kind of a female name.
I agree. But Katie and Mika, who are haunted by a supernatural presence inside their home, they then set up a camera to document what is haunting them. Originally developed as an independent feature and given film festival screenings in 2007, it was then acquired by Paramount Pictures and modified with a new ending that cost an additional $200,000. I have seen this ending many times and I have no fucking idea what cost $200,000.
God, I thought the extra 200,000 was like all post original, like after Paramount, so including like their advertisements and shit. That is a lot of money if they spent that much just on this ending.
I hope that is a misprint, and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I do wonder, and I wish we could find out how much that they spent just on marketing, because I do remember this movie being marketed extremely well.
Yeah, we'll talk about the marketing here in a minute. I don't have an answer for that, though. So the budget was $15,000 and had a box office of a whopping 194 million ball hairs.
Lots of ball hair.
A lot of balls. And considering Paramount only paid $350,000 for the rights to this movie and any sequels, makes it one of the most profitable profitable I had balls in my mouth. Profitable movies ever. It was given a limited US release on September 25th of 2009 and then a nationwide release on October 16th of 2009. The film earned nearly $108 million at the US box office and a further $85 million internationally. Attempting to focus on believability rather than action and gore, Oren Peli chose to shoot the picture with a home video camera. In deciding on a more raw and stationary format, which also eliminated the need for a camera crew. Because if you didn't know, this guy wasn't involved with the film industry at all. He was just a regular guy who wanted to make a movie. So he said, fuck his wife and kids and spent all his free time after work making this shit. So good for him.
And so I read that I guess he worked on like video games and shit. And
yeah, he did computer stuff.
He was a big part of the development of Mortal Kombat 3, I think it was.
Sure.
Yeah, big jump.
Yeah. I do recall a story of him. He kept taking off of work to go to these film festivals. And finally his job was like, because he wanted to go to a big film festival. And his job was like, if you go, we're going to fire you. And he was like, fuck it. And he quit or something.
That's dedication.
And he said he went there and he was like, I didn't know what I was going to do. Like I didn't have a job when I got home. And it was that show where things kicked off for the movie.
Yeah, I heard he tried to get it in a lot of festivals and he got turned down and then finally got picked up by one. He said that the modifications he did for the house, like one of them was putting in new wooden floors, and he said that cost more than the entire budget of the original movie. So that's dedication. This dude was like in it to win it.
Yeah, this movie's filmed in his house, his actual house. Peli says that the dialogue was natural because there was no real script. Instead, the actors were given outlines of the story and situations to improvise. This is a technique known as retroscripting, which was also used in the Blair Witch Project. And I think that it makes found footage movies a whole lot better and believable.
It absolutely, it does. This man put it all on the line for a movie and didn't even have a fucking script.
I like it. In casting the movie, Peli auditioned a few hundred people before finally meeting Katie Featherston and Mika Sloat. Peli was impressed with the chemistry between the actors, saying, if you saw the audition footage, you would have thought they have known each other for years. Another reason that Mika was cast was because he was a former cameraman at his college TV station. And if you've seen the movie, you know that he holds the camera for 90% of the movie. The film was shot out of sequence due to Peli's self-imposed 7-day shooting schedule. I wonder if his wife was like, I'm going to go take the kids, stay with my mom for a week, you shoot your fucking movie, but when I get back, the movie's done. No more movie.
That was his production. That's who made his shooting schedule.
Yeah.
It's like, my wife will allow me 7 days. I've put everything on the line. Maybe that's how he got the floors done. He's like, baby, we'll put in these new floors you wanted if you let me make this movie.
Yeah. So yeah, it was shot out of order, and he would have preferred the story to have unfolded for the actors as he had envisioned it, but that wasn't possible because the film would be shot day and night, edited at the same time, and would have visual effects applied to it as the acting footage was being finalized. So he was on the move. I mean, this was a fucking week. The film was screened at 2007's Screamfest Horror Film Festival, where it impressed an assistant at the Creative Arts Agency so much that CAA signed on to represent Peli. Attempting to find a distributor for the film and or directing work for Peli, the agency sent out DVDs of the movie to as many people in the industry as they could, and it was eventually seen by Miramax Films' senior executive Jason Blum, who thought it had potential. If you listen to our Blair Witch episode, which I believe is now our most listened to episode, I think it's got like 13 or 14,000 listens at this point.
That's just on YouTube.
Yeah. Jason Blum passed on the Blair Witch Project.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so he thought he's seen this and said, I'm not going to do that again.
I bet fucking money, and I don't think he's ever acknowledged this, but I bet money when he seen this fucking movie for the first time, he thought about all the money he lost out on.
I'm sure.
When he turned down the Blair Witch.
Yeah, so he ended up working with Peli to re-edit the film and submit it to the Sundance Film Festival, but it did get rejected. The DVD also impressed DreamWorks executive Adam Goldman, Stacy Snyder, and finally Steven Spielberg, who cut a deal with Blum and Peli. DreamWorks' plan was to remake the film with a bigger budget and with Peli directing and only include the original version as an extra when the DVD was eventually released. Blum and Peli agreed but stipulated a test screening of the original film before going ahead with the remake, believing it would be well received by a theatrical audience. Turns out that was a good call by Blum and Peli because during the screening, people began walking out. Goodman thought the film was bombing until he learned that the viewers were actually leaving because they were so frightened. He then realized a remake was unwise.
Yeah, when I heard that fucking blew my mind that they were going to make them completely redo this movie.
Yeah.
With the script and probably like super acted out, and it would have never been the movie it was. Could you imagine like fighting to get this movie released and you find out that Steven Spielberg took this home and watched it and liked it?
Yeah.
And you still can't get anybody to fucking release it. And then when you finally get somebody to sign on, they're like, yeah, it's cool, but we're going to scrap it. We're going to use the story and just reshoot it completely.
Steven Spielberg said that he watched it and stopped halfway through because it freaked him out so much. And then the next day, during the daytime, he had to finish it.
Well, I heard that he said his bedroom door locked on its own. So at one point, he thought the movie was like cursed.
A cursed movie. When the film was bought by Paramount, several changes were made. Some scenes were cut, others were added, and the original ending was scrapped, with 2 new endings being shot. The ending shown in theaters during the film's worldwide release is the only one of the 3 to feature visual effects, and it differs from the endings previously seen at Screamfest. The new version of the film was screened on September 25th of 2009 in 12 college towns across the United States, where it did pretty well. After that, director Oren Peli invited internet users to demand where the film went next by voting on Eventful. This was the first time a major motion picture studio used the service to virtually market a film. I actually remember sitting on the family computer voting for that after I seen the trailer.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember we did that, but yeah, we did that right there when the computer sat in the little kitchen dining room area.
Back when you have one computer.
One computer.
Once again, still, you're Steven Spielberg loves your movie and you can't get it fucking released.
Yeah. On October 6th, Paramount announced that the movie would be releasing nationwide if the film received 1 million demands on Eventful. On October 10th, the Eventful.com counter hit over 1 million requests. Paramount announced soon after that the film would get a wide domestic release on October 16th and expand to more theaters on October 23rd. By November, it was showing in theaters worldwide, which makes sense because I remember when we went to the theater to see it, it was chilly.
Yeah.
So yeah, that tells me my memory is somewhat accurate.
Man, could you imagine how many awful movies that would have never gotten released if every movie had to have 1 million?
Oh
Like,
man.
They
Yeah.
held this movie to such a high standard just to get it out there. And look at all the money it made, man. And I know part of that was like the lore of it building up as
Yeah.
people were going on and voting and shit, but I mean, some of the awful fucking movies that we get that have studio runs and or full theater runs, and I feel like I don't know why they held this movie to such like a standard.
Maybe because of found footage.
Yeah.
It hadn't really got its foothold quite
Well,
yet.
the Blair Witch was fucking 10 years before this, or
Yeah, but it had an amazing marketing campaign that would be really hard to pull off again.
well, they did do really good marketing for this. I will say that.
So Paranormal Activity was not released on DVD or Blu-ray until December 29th of 2009, more than 2 years after the film was made. The home release includes one alternate ending to the theatrical version. It was released in the UK on March 22nd of 2010 on DVD and Blu-ray with some specials, and the film grossed 22.1 million in home sales. Additionally, at the end of the film, 15 minutes worth of names were added to the DVD release as part of a special promotion. The message that popped up before this said, "The fans who demanded the film were asked by email if they wanted to have their names appear as a thank you for the film's success." So if you ever wondered what all of those names are at the end of the movie, now you know. And I also checked for mine and yours names because I 100% know that we did that demand thing on the website. Unfortunately, neither one of our names are there, so we must have came after the first million. Takes a long time to find either one of our names in a million names. It took me like half a fucking hour.
I feel cheated.
Yeah,
I take
do.
my demand back.
The monetary success of Paranormal Activity compared to its budget made it the most profitable film of all time, surpassing The Blair Witch Project. It directly led to found footage becoming a horror movie trend for years, with The Last Exorcism, Apollo 18, The Devil Inside, and the VHS series arriving in its wake. A parallel sequel and prequel, Paranormal Activity 2, was released in 2010. The success of the first two films would spawn additional films in the series. The prequel, Paranormal Activity 3 in 2011, Paranormal Activity 4 in 2012. The fifth installment and spin-off, The Marked Ones, was released in 2014, and the sixth installment, The Ghost Dimension, was released in 2015. A seventh mainline installment titled Next of Kin was released in October of 2021. Unfortunately, though, it seems like the Paranormal Activity train has finally come to an end, as Jason Blum stated 2 years ago that he thinks it is time the franchise should end after he said Next of Kin was, in his own words, terrible.
Why did you let it be released?
Don't know. But
like,
yeah.
you would think if something was that terrible and you have the money that they had, you'd be like, no, we're not going to put this out. But
it seems that I could not find a bit of information on any plans to make any more Paranormal Activities. So
no, man,
it seems to have stopped.
Jason Blum's got to wait like 10 years and then be like, we're
Trilogy.
coming back for 3.
Trilogy. All right, so ratings. Rotten Tomatoes is at a 83%. IMDb is a 6.3 out of 10. Letterboxd a 2.9 out of 5. And the Google average audience rating is a 3.5 out of 5. If you would like to watch this movie, you can currently only find it streaming on Paramount Plus, or you can rent it at Amazon, YouTube, Apple TV, Fandango, and Google Play for $3.99.
Man, it's a shame all those sequels and the first couple I didn't think were bad. I thought it was cool that they had some continuity in the story and they showed us the story from some other angles. But it got bad. It got really I haven't even seen them all. I know I've seen the newest one, but I know, like, the ghost dimension and shit, like, I've seen that, and I'm like, "Ah, I'm not even fucking wasting an hour and a half of my life."
Yeah, I
And,
mean, I have some opinions on it, but I'm saving them for the end.
yeah, I just think it's a shame, and whenever I rated this movie, I had to kinda go back 'cause this franchise has been parodied and joked about and, bad movies has come out, and I think it's really put a stain on the legacy of this
Yeah,
original movie, and I had to think back, and I remember when this came out, and I was like, it was a good fucking movie. I
yeah,
remember being stoked when I seen it.
yeah, I agree. I think that it started out amazing, and then the studio does what studios do, and they drove it into the ground for
Y
money.
yeah, and I think a big part of that too is the magic of this movie, and the same thing happened with Blair Witch. Once you start putting scripts and stories and shit into it and it gets
Yeah,
too crazy, it loses the magic that this movie and the Blair Witch have, which is where everything feels so real because they're not somebody didn't sit down and write this. This is, this
act
is
it out.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
coming out of the people's brains right then,
yeah,
right there, as if they were having actual conversations. And yeah, the same thing happened to like the newest Blair Witch that they came out with like 10 years ago, which was cool
yeah.
premise, but it just didn't come out very well. And there's a magic to this movie because of that.
Are you ready to dive into the plot of Paranormal Activity?
I am ready.
All right, let's do it. Okay, so we start out with a black screen that says Paramount Pictures would like to thank the families of Mika Sloat and Katie Featherston and the San Diego Police Department. Because remember, this is supposed to be real. So we then see some home footage or some found footage of lead character Mika, who has just bought a very fancy new camera and appears to just be filming around their house while waiting for his girlfriend Katie to arrive home. Very soon after, we see him excitedly run outside with the camera as Katie pulls into the driveway. And we see that the date this begins is September 18th of 2006. So Katie sees the camera and is playfully asking him about it, and we learn here that the reason for Mika getting his new piece of tech is because they have begun to experience some paranormal activity. See what I did there?
I
Yeah,
do.
included the title. Also, the scene where she asks him about how much he spent on the camera, he says about half of what he made today. And according to Peli, that camera setup cost him $3,000.
That guy makes $6,000 a day in 2006.
I guess
That's
so.
pretty. His day trading is going really well.
Trading really well. So yeah, they're getting some ghosts around their very new house, and they want to attempt to capture it on video. It could be ghosts. It also may be those damn kids a few houses down. And I'm just going to go ahead and point it out now. We'll get it out of the way. Katie's hot.
Yes, yes, she is. I don't know. I was like, let's see, 15 when this came out, and she was much older than I don't know. But she looks like she's about late 20s, 30s.
I'd say she's probably like 25 or something, 26.
She has that wife material
Yeah,
thing going
yeah,
on.
I would agree.
She was very blessed with where the way her body turned out. I'll
Yeah,
just say
okay.
that. I don't know. I don't want to be too explicit. We'll save that for the Patreon. All the ghost sex as you call it. But
Yeah.
yes, she is very, very attractive.
So yeah, Katie's asking what exactly Mika plans on capturing with the camera, and he's talking about ghosts, or he claims the kids next door are obsessed with her, which, I don't blame him. And of course, he's joking, but Katie drops a little bit of important info here when she says that she has had a ghost following her around since she was 8 years old. Now, if you have seen these movies before, you would know that this is kind of the cornerstone of the franchise. It's just that one little sentence. So after dinner, we see the couple head into the living room for some downtime when Micah abruptly asks if Katie knows any way to make this ghost do something cool that he could get on camera. Katie responds by saying that she doesn't want the ghost here at all and she finds the whole thing unnerving. She agrees that if something were to happen and they were to get it on tape, then cool, but she doesn't want to provoke it. Mika agrees with this, but we can tell here that he doesn't see it that way, and his goal is to capture as much paranormal activity as possible. It also seems like he doesn't really believe in this stuff, despite what he says to Katie, and this is really going to be apparent in the rest of the story. A little later on, while hanging out in the living room, Katie stops Mika from playing guitar because she starts to hear a weird noise coming from the kitchen. Mika then jumps into action, grabbing the camera and searching the house. And after some quick investigating, they discover that it's just the ice maker in the refrigerator.
I'm so glad that they put the fucking ice maker in here. I think everybody who's ever had a fridge
Yeah.
that makes ice at some point has thought that there was some paranormal activity going on, only to discover it's their loud ass ice maker.
Yeah, I mean, it's when it's making ice, it doesn't really, it doesn't sound like ice.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
Sounds like your house creaking
Yeah.
in some weird ways.
So we then cut to later on in the night where we see the couple getting ready to go to bed. Mika is setting up the camera on a tripod in order to film while they are sleeping. And it is at this point where Katie tells him to point it out of the room and down the hallway because that is where they hear this ghost walking around. After they get this all set up, they head to bed with the camera recording, and we see on the screen that this is night number 1, September 18th, 2006. We then skip to 2:08 a.m. where we hear some floorboards creaking and what sounds like a person running around in the attic. And that's it. That's all we're going to get on night 1. But trust me, it's going to get to be a lot more activity.
I thought night 1 was just, thinking back the first time I watched this movie, there's just something like inherently creepy about these two people being asleep and this going on.
Yeah.
It makes you think like,
What?
and I know that there's videos, whether real or fake, but there's like people downloading those sleep apps where they go off when you make noise.
I did that.
Yeah.
And I caught something really fucking weird.
Yeah, and it makes you think like what goes on when you're asleep.
Yeah, I remember showing you guys like what my sleep app had caught, and it was so fucking weird. I'm trying to remember what it
It's
was.
like whispering.
It was like talking. Yeah, it was talking, and my little app will literally say like what the sound is. Like if you're snoring, it'll say snoring under when that audio clip comes up. And this one said talking, and it was talking, but it showed I was asleep, completely asleep. And it was really creepy sounding talking too. It wasn't like me talking.
Yeah, if I remember right, it wasn't like it was talking, but it wasn't in any like words that you would understand.
Yeah. I totally forgot about that. The next day, while Mika screws around with the tripod, we hear Katie, who is downstairs making breakfast, ask her boyfriend if he happened to place her keys in the middle of the floor, and as you may have guessed it, he did not. So later that afternoon, Katie picks up the camera and informs us that she called a psychic to come by and evaluate the situation. And Mika, who it's safe to say is not a fan of people with the second sight, he's actually kind of very anti-psychic. And this psychic isn't like a friend or a friend's friend. Like this guy's like legit professor type. He's got his doctorate. He's like a professional psychic.
Yeah, Mika gives me Shane vibes in the beginning of this movie from from BuzzFeed.
Oh,
BuzzFeed Paranormal,
yeah.
where it's like no matter what
Yeah.
happens, even if it's something where he's like kind of freaked out in the moment, he still always like has to laugh it off.
Yeah, even if he can't explain it, he's like, somebody can. Somebody can explain it.
Yeah, the difference is I like Shane. Mika becomes a very unlikable character as this movie
I agree.
progresses.
Yeah. So, about an hour later, the psychic, whose name is Dr. Frederick, arrives and Katie welcomes him inside. And Mika, who is standing close by recording this whole interaction, is kind of being a dick and making shitty comments. Despite this, though, Fredericks is very professional and polite and begins to ask the couple about their lives and relationship. After he finds out a little about them, he then tells them that more often than not, when people think they are experiencing paranormal activities, it's really just stuff that can be logically explained. Stuff like noisy pipes and squeaky floorboards, made worse by the occupant's high stress level, creating a bit of a paranoia.
Paranorman. Shit.
After this, Fredericks then asks Katie about her previous experiences, and she begins to tell him about what happened when she was 8 years old. She says that during that time, her and her younger sister Christy shared a room, and they both begin having an experience with some kind of entity. She claims that she would be woken up by the feeling of something breathing on her, and when she would open her eyes, she would see like the dark silhouette of something standing at the foot of her bed. She also adds that her sister would see this figure as well, but it was always standing at Katie's bed. This event would terrify them so much that they wouldn't be able to move and would just hope and pray it would just go away. She then says that this went on for a while until, without any cause or reason, the home caught fire and destroyed all of their possessions. The fire was investigated, but no reason was ever discovered by authorities. After this, the haunting pretty much stopped until around the time Katie turned 13. And it's basically been off and on since then, with it now reemerging in the past few weeks. So my assumption is this demon was like, I'll wait till you hit puberty.
I was going to make that joke, but I was like, no, I'm not going to.
Obviously, that is what happened. That demon's a bastard.
What a fucking pedo demon.
Yeah. Katie then starts to tell him some of what she's experiencing. She says that the lights sometimes flicker, the sink will turn on by itself, and they will hear something that sounds like it is dragging its nails down the wall. Fredericks then wants to go take a look at the bedroom, where he gets a feeling that this is where most of Katie's experiences are taking place. She confirms his suspicions and tells him that she sometimes hears whispering in her ear, even saying her name at times. And Mika's fucking dumbass says, well, maybe that's just me saying your name in my sleep.
And her reaction is so genuine, like a real reaction where she gets frustrated and she's like, no, I can tell the difference between you saying my name and then something on the complete other side of me literally whispering that sounds nothing like you.
Yeah, most people could, which is why he's stupid.
Yeah, he makes a lot of dumb comments when this psychic guy's over.
Yeah.
He does make a good point. If you're a psychic, you probably should not be late for anything in your life if you can foresee things like traffic. And then he says it to the guy. Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, why would you say that? Like, that's a funny joke to make, but
don't say it to
the guy like literally when you first meet him. I'd have been like, nope, I'm out.
So after he gets his foot out of his own ass, he then asks Fredericks if there is something they can do to basically get the ghost more active, so he can catch it on tape. Fredericks can see where this is going, and despite an initial pause, he informs them that spirits or demons will feed off of negative energy, so if they have any negative emotions going on here, the hauntings will get worse. So after finishing up the walkthrough of the house, they all head back downstairs and sit on the couch as Fredericks then begins explaining the differences of ghosts and demons. And unfortunately for them, he believes that this is no ghost, aka a dead person, This is a demon that has attached itself to Katie and will continue to follow her until she is able to basically get rid of it. Fredericks then explains that the demons are not his specialty, but he knows a very good demonologist close by that would be willing to help. He then writes his number on a card and urges Katie and Mika to call him tomorrow.
That's a professional psychic right there. He's like, I'm gonna be honest. I'm a ghost guy.
Dead people's my specialty.
I got a really good friend who's a demon guy.
And maybe the demon guy, he's like, he goes to a house and he's like, honestly, ghosts are not my specialty. I'm more of a demon guy, but I got a guy who can do ghosts. Mika then interrupts and asks Fredericks about getting a Ouija board and asks the demon what it wants and then giving it what it asked for. Like the demon's going to be like, hey, get me a sandwich. And they're just going to make a sandwich and he's going to go away. And Fredericks is like, that's a dumb idea because the demon probably wants Katie. Also, if you attempt to communicate with it, you are just inviting it in even more than you already have. So it sounds to me like Mika has never seen The fucking Exorcist.
Never, clearly.
So later on, right before bed, Katie is talking about how Frederick's visit made her feel validated and hopeful for a good outcome. But Mika thinks that this is all bullshit and begs Katie not to call the demonologist, Dr. Avery's. After a brief debate, Katie agrees to hold off on the call unless the situation gets worse. The couple then do the sex and head to bed, where we see the words "Night number 3, September 20th, 2006" appear on the screen. We then fast forward to 2:09 a.m., where we begin to hear some rumbling throughout the house, along with some random noises, when we suddenly see the bedroom door start to move a little. So the next day, we see Mika check the footage from the night before, and needless to say, he's pretty excited about the movement of the door. He then shows Katie, who is pretty stunned at the footage, not really knowing how to feel about it. Mika then asks her if she can get the ghost to come back again, and she tells him that despite how interesting the video evidence is, she really just wants it to go away.
You know who else was excited about that door? Zach Baggins.
Oh, that made him want to punch his cameraman.
There's a deleted scene where he's literally freaking out about the door and then beats his whole crew up. And they're all scared to fight back. They don't want to get fired.
Then he buys the door and puts it in his fucking Las Vegas museum.
Yeah, which is full of a bunch of fake shit, I found out. Like a lot of that stuff's not his. A lot of it is not even actual items. They're like based off of an item and a story that he heard or that somebody told him. It'll be like a story of like a camera that, predicts these bad things, and then he'll just get an old camera and say it's that.
Yeah, it sounds about right. So we then jump to bedtime, where we see Mika reading a book as Katie films him. And what he has done here is went and bought a book on witchcraft and demons, which I personally find annoying because those two do not always go hand in hand, despite what the media likes to say.
Yeah, those two things are very much unrelated.
Yes.
You got some black magic that has to do with demonology, but
it's a little bit of it that crosses over, but it's like, I don't know, 15% of the total of such a religion. But yeah, in movies and media and stuff, they always want to tie those things together, and that's not always true. But anyway, he is attempting to use this one book to figure out what's really going on here, which I want to point out something about this book. So this is a real book that you can buy. It is called The Picture Book of Devils, Demons, and Witchcraft from 1971 by Ernest and Johanna Lerner. So one, if you wanted to actually learn some real info on the paranormal, don't buy a fucking picture book. He even flips through the pages like in the movie, and we mostly see pictures. There's not a lot of text.
His childish mind can't handle too much text.
Yeah, he's literally like, I'll figure it out with these pictures. 2, it's from 1971. So you aren't even going to find out any of the more advanced stuff that we know about the paranormal. You're getting your info about paranormal stuff that we knew in the 70s.
I mean, hold on now. I don't think that we've learned a whole lot about paranormal since the 70s.
No, we have with the technology and stuff that you can use. Like, I'm not opposed to getting a book from the 70s. I have old witchcraft and paranormal books. But at least if you don't know anything and you're trying to learn something, get you an old book, but get you a new book too.
Well, I'll say, like, for the history side of it, that's fine. Because, I've read the book on black magics from, like, the late 1800s. When you're talking about history's not gonna change, but, yeah, I guess if you're going into science of ghosts or I still don't know how much we've learned, but I think you got a good point with the picture book thing. Like, I think the most hilarious part of this whole scene is that he literally tells her word for word what the ghost guy, who he just like berated and fucking made a bunch of asshole comments about, the same thing that he tells her. He's like, "Yeah, I don't think this is, yeah, a ghost is a person who died, and I don't think this is. I don't get the vibe that this is a ghost. I think it's a demon." It's like the guy who was just there like 2 days before told you this, and you laughed at him.
Yeah, I just feel like if you're trying to kind of hunt this thing that is in your house, you need some newer information like stuff like hot and cold spots, like EVP stuff, those little things that like I think you have one, the little thing that puts out like a certain amount of electricity and has
Oh,
the lights on it or whatever.
it's a REM pod, and
Yeah,
it picks up electromagnetic currents. It's like just a electromagnetic reader.
yeah, and I just think like if you're hunting this ghost around your house, newer information like that would be really helpful, especially if you're not going to accept outside help, even though she wants outside help and you're going to solve this whole thing on your own. You need to know some of the newer things that's going on with fucking ghost shit.
Yeah, well, this guy's an idiot.
But he's got a picture book from the 70s, so I'm sure he'll be fine. So Mika's like, oh, I read this book, or more like I looked at the pictures of this book, and I know it all now. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. And Katie responds with the fact that she understands that this is fun and exciting for him, but not for her. And if things start getting out of control, she wants to stop recording it and pretty much making it mad. Well, as you may have guessed it, Mika doesn't want to hear this bullshit and tells Katie, since you didn't bother to tell me you were followed around by a demon before we moved in together, I should have a say-so in how we handle this, and I want to continue pissing this thing off. And Katie's like, how do you tell somebody that? Which
Yeah,
I agree.
I do agree. And he makes the comment like, well, maybe not on the first date, but maybe the 15th or the 30th date. That's still something that's kind of hard to bring up.
I mean, even if you've been dating years and you're finally going to move in together, would it have really changed anything?
Yeah. Yeah, and I thought about that. Like, she should have asked him that. Would it have made a difference?
Yeah, considering the ghost is fucking with her and not him, I think she has a lot more say-so in how it's handled, but
He's
but
just
he
a
doesn't.
fucking asshole, man.
Yeah.
He's clearly does not give a fuck or respect her, what she's comfortable with
No.
whatsoever at all.
We then cut to the couple in bed and we see that this is now night number 5, September 22nd, 2006, and we immediately jump to 2:55 a.m. where we start to hear that low rumble throughout the house when suddenly Katie jolts up awake from a nightmare, almost launching herself into a panic attack. Mika wakes up and comforts her, but just a few moments later, the couple are jump scared by a loud noise coming from the living room area. The two then grab the camera and head downstairs to investigate, but they don't find anything unusual. And as Mika places the camera back on the tripod, he taunts the entity by saying, "Is that all you got?" which causes Katie to get upset at him.
Well, I would not have been even thinking about grabbing this camera when I heard this fucking noise.
Oh,
Like, when this shit hits the wall, it like hits the wall.
yeah.
Yeah. Nope. I would
Yeah.
have been like, the last thing I would have thought about was the camera. my first thought would be somebody's in my house.
Yeah.
And then when I realized it wasn't somebody in my house, I'd be like, well, we're either leaving this house or we're not opening that fucking door.
Definitely not yelling out, "Is that all you got?" The next day, Katie's friend Amber comes by the house, and while working on some bead jewelry, Mika asks them to come over to the computer so he can show them something. He then plays them the audio of the video the night before, where he discovers something speaking right before Katie wakes up from her nightmare. He claims after listening to it many times that it doesn't seem to be any known language that he has ever heard of, and he wants to go buy a Ouija board to communicate with the entity. Katie and Amber immediately shoot this idea down, with Katie even going as far as saying if he buys a Ouija board, she is shutting the camera stuff down. She then makes him promise that he won't do it, and after Mika tries to argue his point, he gives up and promises he won't go out and buy a Ouija board.
Bro, the moment the Ouija board's mentioned, like everybody always loses their mind.
Yeah.
I think The Exorcist may be responsible for that.
I'd 100% agree with that.
We had grandparents that anytime this was mentioned and parents, and I feel like it's like Ouija boards got this huge
negative
thing, man. Anytime they get brought up, everybody's like, God, no.
Well,
you can't do that.
Newsflash to the world. We have both used Ouija boards on multiple occasions and have not been possessed, haunted.
I will say that I have never had success while using a Ouija board, but I do have one Ouija board that I keep locked up, and we don't use it. And like when me and my wife first got married, she wanted to play with it, and I went and bought another one because I did some really stupid shit when I was in my early 20s, and then shortly after that, some very life-changing stuff happened within a week. A grandparent died, like a ton of bad shit.
Yeah, this is a bad streak of bad luck there.
I left my blood on this Ouija board, and I think it was a mistake. So it's not like I don't believe in them. I just don't think that they're like
this huge, if you open it and start using it, you're instantly fucked.
Yeah, I think there's a way to do things the right way and respectful, and then there's a way to be like this dumbass or my dumbass when I was like in the army in my early 20s, and to avoid doing them that way.
We once again cut right to bedtime, and it seems that Katie is getting a little irritated with Mika's attitude towards the entity as she begs him to put the camera away and come to bed. But he is too busy standing in the doorway challenging this demon, saying, "We haven't had any activity for a few days. I'm calling you out. What you got?" This dude is a fucking idiot. Like, I mean, I don't know. It's like he doesn't take it. He's not taking this seriously at all, despite the fact that some things have happened. Like, there's some things he cannot say didn't happen.
That's my biggest gripe about this movie, and one of the few that I really have, is that he continues to act as if nothing has really happened and he wants this evidence. But by this point in the movie, they've gotten really good evidence.
Yeah.
Like when that shit hit the wall in the room and they went downstairs and the fucking chandeliers like moving and stuff, that is great evidence. You don't need to prove anything else after that. I would be like, okay, I fucked up. I'm going to keep my mouth shut. But he like continues to dig and dig for this evidence. And, even, if Brooke came to me and was like, Bigfoot has been after me since I was a kid. And I was like, okay. I was like, okay, sure. And I thought it was kind of funny. When I seen that she was this emotionally scared for her life, I would not fuck with it.
You wouldn't be out yelling like, "Bigfoot, what you got? You gonna come to my door? You gonna come knock on my window tonight?"
Exactly. I would have enough respect for her with seeing that this really bothered her to where, I might joke about it when she's not around. but I wouldn't be out there trying to like taunt and have a fist fight with Bigfoot in my backyard.
So we then jump to 3:13 a.m., which is night 13, September 30th of 2006, where we see the two sleeping peacefully in their bed, when Katie then gets awoken by some banging around in the attic. Mika then wakes up and asks Katie what's wrong, but he quickly also hears the banging, and then suddenly they hear a loud screeching sound followed by a really big bang, which scares the ever-loving shit out of both of them. This would be my moment where I'm ready to call the demonologist. I would have a fucking Uber parked in his driveway, ready to bring him over like as soon as he got out of bed. This would scare the shit out of me.
Yeah, and I remember the first time I watched this movie, that screeching sound
Yeah.
before and the bang is like a bang. It's like
bang.
a shake your house bang on the other
Yeah.
side of the wall. Like I'm fuck having an Uber at his house. I'd have an Uber outside of my house picking me up. I'd be too shaken to drive after this.
So Katie immediately starts crying as Mika jumps up and grabs the camera. They both then head downstairs where they see the chandelier swinging back and forth. And after a quick check around the house, they don't find any other obvious signs of the entity. But when they attempt to go back to bed, they do continue to hear the banging around somewhere else in the house.
And his dumbass keeps talking. She's like
Yeah.
trying to listen to
Yeah.
it. That would aggravate me so much. Like watching the movie, I was aggravated because I'm like listening for it, and then he starts talking. Like no shit.
The next morning, Katie is obviously stressed out and upset over the events of the night before, but Mika is very excited and hopes things continue to ramp up because he's dumb. Later on, when Katie isn't around, we see Mika go into the bedroom with the camera, hook up a very sensitive microphone, and attempt to ask questions with an EVP. Which, if you don't know what an EVP is, it stands for Electronic Voice Phenomena, which is a term used to describe sounds that are recorded by electronic devices but can't be heard by the human ear. Ghost hunters use EVP recorders to capture potential audio anomalies. These recorders can be used to ask questions to spirits and interact with them, and can be used to record potential paranormal activity. If you've seen any ghost hunting shows, you have 100% seen this done. They all use this equipment. It's very common. And basically how it works usually is you turn on your very sensitive microphone, you ask some questions, then you go back and you listen to what you recorded on a computer program and you see what the recorder picked up that your human ears didn't. That's typically how it works.
Essentially just a microphone.
It's a very sensitive microphone that can hear shit that we can't.
It's the same premise that if you get like a ghost in your picture and you're like, oh, I didn't see that, but the picture picked it up.
Yeah.
Same thing with electronic voice phenomenon.
Yep. So back to the story. So he starts asking some questions, even bringing up a Ouija board and asking what its quest and favorite color is, which was dumb. Apparently it was like a Monty Python thing.
That was?
Yeah.
I thought that was just more of him being
No, it's Monty Python.
Fucking child.
We then cut to Mika on the computer listening back to the recording where he doesn't really hear anything except when he asks about the Ouija board. He then gets a little growl from this entity. And I think everyone here knows what Mika's gonna do next. We then jump to night 15, October 2nd, 2006. And the time is 1:35 a.m. We again see Katie and Mika fast asleep in their bedroom when suddenly Katie just sits up, looks around, and exits the bed. She then, without saying anything, turns around facing the bed and proceeds to stand perfectly still and silent while staring at Mika for the next 2 hours. I remember this being one of the creepiest parts of the movie for me.
There is something inherently creepy about this, and I'm not gonna lie, this has went through my head probably at least 10 times in 6 years of marriage. Like, just laying in the bed and thinking, what if I roll over and she's just staring at me? Like,
yeah, it's chilling, man.
Creepy.
It's chilling because we have that, we as people, we've evolved, but we still have those natural instincts. And when you are asleep, it is the time when you are by far completely the most vulnerable. And just someone staring at you while you sleep is like, I personally think it's like goes against the grain of our natural survival instincts, where we know when shit stares at you when you're sleeping is probably not good.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's never good. There's never a time where getting stared at in your sleep is good. And of course, Mika's a fucking idiot. This is like if I woke up and Bigfoot was staring at me, I wouldn't be fucking antagonizing Bigfoot anymore.
Yeah.
That'd be it.
So while she is standing there, we just see the footage like fast forward to 3:30 a.m. Katie then slowly turns and walks downstairs where we lose sight of her. Sometime later, Mika wakes up, realizing she isn't there. He grabs the camera and he goes looking for her. And at first, he doesn't find her, but he does find that the back door is open. He then cautiously heads into the backyard where he finds a zoned out Katie just sitting on a swing. He then tries to get Katie to come back inside, but she refuses. And you can tell here that despite her awake and responding to Mika, something's definitely off with Katie. So, after his repeated attempts at trying to find out what's wrong and get her to come inside, he eventually gives up and says that he's going to go and grab some blankets because it is cold outside.
Oh, he actually gives a fuck about Katie?
About something. But when he heads in, he hears a loud bang from upstairs and the TV on. He quickly runs up to the bedroom where he finds the TV and light on, and right when he turns back around towards the hallway, boom, there is Katie just standing there like she just woke up, super confused about what's going on. And it becomes apparent very quickly that Katie has no memory of anything that has happened over the last 2 hours. And this gets reinforced when they both watch the footage the next day, and Katie is completely confused by all of this. But Mika, he chalks this up to just some sleepwalking.
You know, the sleepwalking thing I could get, but with it happening at the same time that all this paranormal shit's happened, like the fucking loud bang and the TV being on, and the other 10 nights that you've had creepy shit go on, there's no way. Do you think it would be worse to be him and to see her staring, or to be her and not remember any of this shit?
Oh, man. I mean, honestly, in my opinion on that question, I would be worse to be her. But I will say that if I was in Mika's position, I would be like, okay, even if this is sleepwalking, that's fucking creeping me out. Like, if that shit happens again, I'm sleeping in the fucking other bedroom from here on out. Let's just say you're not possessed and you are sleepwalking. The fact that you sleptwalk over to the side of the bed and stared at me for 2 fucking hours is insanely creepy.
The way she moves too.
Yeah.
It's happening. One thing they do a really good job of, and they do it really good at the end of the movie, but right here too, is the way she walks is the same footsteps that you hear throughout the house. So it gives you a really good indication that
it's not
her body is being taken over by whatever they're hearing.
So Katie is deeply disturbed by this and tells him that all she remembers from the night before is having really bad nightmares all night.
Really bad sex with you because you're a fucking shitty way.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Mika.
After this, she wants to call the demonologist, but Mika again talks her out of it, claiming bringing Dr. Adler in will just make it worse and not to worry because he, who has no fucking experience in this and learned everything he knows from a goddamn picture book, is gonna figure it out.
Yeah, this guy clearly has control issues.
Yeah.
Watching this movie, I think his character is believable because
there's a lot of people like that.
He's one of those people that's like, and he even says it in a little bit later, like, this is my house. You're my girlfriend.
You're my property.
I'm gonna take care of any problems there is. Like, I'm in control.
I think
no, you don't have any control in this situation.
I think he has a lot of self-esteem issues because he's extremely concerned with another male coming into the house, and essentially the way he looks at it, saving his girlfriend because he can't.
Yeah.
And, you know, as being an adult male, I have no problem bringing a more educated, experienced person in to solve a problem that I fucking know nothing about. It's like if, my sink pipe bursts and I look at that and say, I have no idea how to fix this. I don't have any problem calling a plumber to come out and fix something that I don't know nothing about.
Or if I woke up and Bigfoot was literally staring at me, I would call in a Bigfoot
Call a
expert.
Bigfoot guy because
I'd
I
be
don't.
like, if there was somebody who could make Bigfoot stop fucking with me at night, I would call them.
Or you can just get a Dr. Seuss picture book and I'm sure be just as educated. So we then jump to later that evening while Katie is upstairs getting ready for a much needed night out on the town, we see Mika set the camera on a tripod in the living room and show us that he has acquired a Ouija board. So this is like the scariest Ouija board ever.
This is a fucking cool Ouija board. I will say that. Like,
It's got this upside down pentagram with like hellfire in the background. And what makes this even funnier is, according to writer-director Oren Peli, he actually bought this Ouija board from his local Costco.
wow. I had to go to Costco, man. This thing's cool. It really looks like it's, and I'm sure it's not. So sure it's much cheaper than that. But it looks like a really good shiny layer of epoxy poured over the top of it. It looks legit.
Yeah, so if you've ever been to Costco, they have about 700 of everything. So I'm wondering, like, did he go into Costco and there's just like, especially like in the middle of the store, there's like 700 boxes of like the Ouija board from hell just sitting next to like a bunch of sweaters and fucking kids' toys.
Did he have to buy 10 of them?
He bought a box and it came with 10 of them. You buy your Ouija boards in bulk. It honestly reminds me every time I see it of the cover of Jason Goes to Hell, because it has all that like hellfire in the background.
Yeah.
So Mika, I don't know why I keep fucking his name up. So Mika places the board on the living room table, and when Katie comes downstairs, he excitedly asks her to join him in attempting to communicate with the demon. Well, I don't know what the fuck he was thinking, but Katie is pissed when she sees this thing and immediately starts freaking out on him. She then says, "You promised me you wasn't going to buy a Ouija board." And he responds by saying, "I didn't buy it, I borrowed it." Because yeah, that's going to win that argument.
This guy's an idiot, man.
I'm like, dude, everybody in the world who has ever been in a relationship knows that you are never going to get anywhere with that argument. You're spinning tires.
Yeah, this guy's an idiot. That's all I can say. It's just like, why would he excitedly think that she was going to be about this?
What did he think when he said like, well, I borrowed it? She was going to be like, oh, well, never mind then. I guess I'm a fucking idiot. I probably should have included that. I guess I can't be mad at you now.
Yeah, you got me on a technicality.
Yeah. So a very angry Katie then says, fuck this. She's leaving and Mika is either coming with her or not. She then storms out of the door with Mika rushing out behind her, leaving the camera left to record. A few moments after they leave, we start to hear loud footsteps from upstairs. We see the plants and the curtains move in the background, and the planchette begins to spell out something on the board. As it finishes its message, the planchette moves to the corner of the board, and the board catches fire. We then hear some more running around on the second floor as the screen fades to black.
And hearing the stomp of this thing coming up to it right before the planchette starts moving, I thought was super creepy. But I also thought it was really funny that after the fire starts, you hear the footsteps much faster than normal running off. It's like this thing literally started a fire and then ran off.
I gotta get out of here before they see me. We then jump to Katie and Micah returning home hours later, where Micah finds the board kind of melted on top. As he picks it up to look at it, Katie gets pissed again, taking off up the steps. Mika tries to calm her down, but she kicks him out of the bedroom, slamming the door behind him. So, I know what the Ouija board actually spelled out. So, this is according to Oren Peli, and it said, "Goodbye, Mika." So, obviously, it is not a fan of him, which neither am I. So, me and you and the entity are basically best bros because of our mutual hate for Mika.
We do.
Yeah, so don't come haunt us.
Our what is it? The enemy of our enemy is our friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, fuck you, Mika.
Yep.
I wish they would have made that a little more obvious in the movie. Not super obvious, but maybe the camera a little closer to the board where if you really had a sharp eye, you could pick up on it.
Yeah, I agree. Later on, she comes back downstairs where Mika wants to talk about smoothing things over. Katie agrees but makes him turn the camera off, and when the camera turns back on, we see Mika standing in front of it, being forced to say, "I swear to abide by Katie's rules and regulations of camera use and not to offend this entity or whatever in any way. I also promise to not betray Katie's trust, so help me God."
And I'm sure he meant every word of
He
that.
totally looked like he did. The next day, we see Mika sit down and watch the footage over and over again, attempting to figure out what was spelled on the board, and he thinks it says Diane. So he asks Katie if the name Diane means anything to her, but she says no dice. After this, we get a short scene where Katie is talking to her friend Amber about the situation, and the only reason I included this is because it looks like she's drinking wine or something out of a fucking measuring cup.
Huh.
Yeah, it's like a huge glass measuring cup. And I'm like, damn, she must be stressed.
She's going through it. I mean, well, in her defense, like, her family almost died and she lost everything in a fire. And then this motherfucker shows her a video of this thing starting, like, catching on fire when nobody's home.
And then running away. So after this, I feel like like they spray paints an upside down pentagram on the wall and runs away. So after this, Mika brings up an experiment he wants to do, which is to put down some baby powder in the bedroom doorway and the hallway to see if they get any ghost footprints. Katie says that she will agree to the powder on one condition. If it doesn't help them in any way, she will be allowed to call the demonologist, and Mika agrees. What's wild is the whole like, "You'll let me call the demonologist." Just call the fucking demonologist. Fuck what he says.
Yeah, he's very clearly got control issues. I thought the powder thing was so stupid. Like, that's obviously there's in no way or a plan of any way of the powder helping anything. It's just to get more evidence. And you just had a Ouija board spell some shit out and then catch on fire, and you got it on video. You can't get any better evidence than that.
Yeah. Mika said that the Ouija board was just sleepwalking. It's not a big deal. I'll look up in my picture book and see if there's a picture about it.
Must have fell asleep while I was smoking.
We then cut to bedtime, where we see Mika putting the powder down as Katie records. They then get ready to go to bed when Katie brings up the demonologist again, and we again have to deal with Mika's macho man bullshit that they don't need a demonologist because nobody fucks with his girlfriend and gets away with it, and he's gonna get rid of this demon.
It's so cringy.
Well, much like I would do, Katie laughs in his face. So the couple then turn the light off and they go to bed, where we see it as night 17, October 4th of 2006. We then fast forward to 3:15 a.m. where we again start to hear the loud footsteps in the hallway. And if you pay really close attention during this scene, you can actually see the powder footprints appear on the floor. The sound of this wakes Katie and Mika up, where Mika quickly notices the prints, causing him to jump up and grab the camera. Once the light turns on, we can see that the prints lead right for Katie's side of the bed. They then follow where the prints came from down the hallway, where they discovered the attic door open. Despite Katie's pleas for Mika not to go up there, He grabs a ladder and he puts the camera up in the doorway where he sees something stuck in the insulation. He then passes the camera down to Katie as he heads up and grabs the paper, and when he brings it back down, we see that it is a half-burnt picture of Katie when she was 8 years old. When Katie sees this, she starts freaking out, saying there's no way and this is impossible. Because if you remember, when their house burnt down when she was 8, everything was destroyed. So once again, this is where I would be calling the demonologist. I mean, you got like a fucking dinosaur looking footprints leading towards your bed.
She is being haunted by Big Bird.
And a picture that hasn't existed since the goddamn 80s mysteriously appears in your attic at like 3 a.m. There's nothing left to debate.
Yeah, this would be the end of the line. I would leave the country. I would be like, you know what? I hope this ghost just doesn't like Italy or something.
Can I get a flight on SpaceX?
Yes, please, leave the planet.
So the next day, Katie is like, I'm calling Dr. Adler. And of course, Mika tries to stop her. Once again, I don't know why she keeps letting him call the shots on this. I would tell him to fuck off.
Man, is it the third movie where they're kids? I
Yeah.
think it is the third one.
Yeah, that's the prequel.
So I never realized they actually reenact this picture being taken.
They do.
When they're kids.
I really like the third one. So she finally makes the call, but unfortunately for her, Dr. Adler's is out of the country and won't be back for a few days. So what does Katie do? She calls Fredericks to come back, hoping maybe he can help in some way. We then jump to night 18, October 5th of 2006. It is 3:53 a.m. and we see the couple peacefully sleeping in their bed when suddenly the hall light flips on and we start hearing the loud footsteps again. This sound wakes Mika up, and right as he begins to open his eyes, the light shuts off, causing him to get out of bed to investigate. But this is short-lived because as he walks towards the doorway, the bedroom door slams shut, scaring him and Katie. He then grabs the camera and goes to open the door, but is startled as some very loud banging begins on the other side. You know, at this point, you would think Mika would also be ready to get rid of the demon just so he can get a fucking good night's sleep. Like, this thing wakes them up every night.
Yeah, I don't understand trying to, like, go out of this door. Like, this shit's all happening while you're awake now. And if that's not fucking super creepy enough, being about to open the door and then hearing all those bangs, you couldn't pay me to go out of that room.
I'd be putting some bullets through that motherfucker.
I would be going out the window.
Yeah, I would assume this is a person banging on my door.
Yeah, if I woke up tonight and somebody's banging, I would definitely, as long as all my kids are accounted for, I'm shooting through the door. But in his situation where he has all this ghost shit happening and he sees that the door slams on its own, if I'm 100% that this thing's a ghost, there's no way in hell I'm opening that door. I am getting Katie and we are going out the goddamn window. We are taking whatever plunge we have to take from the second floor, and we are getting in our car and leaving and never coming back to this fucking house again.
I feel like Mika would be like, all right, Katie, you go out first and you jump, and then once you get down there, catch me.
It's like, sit next to the house. I have a ladder. Can you bring it over?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense for us both to get hurt jumping. I have to save you.
Yeah, I have to be in good physical condition in case I have to carry you down the street when we run away.
In case I gotta fight this demon. I'm gonna beat his ass. I'm in control.
So they finally both make it out into the hallway, but while they're looking around, they hear banging on the walls all around them. The bedroom door slams shut again, prompting Mika to look in the bedroom, but he doesn't see anything. After this chills out a bit, Mika wants to go back to bed, but Katie tries to convince him to sleep downstairs, but he manages to get her to go back in the room. You know, the room continues to frighten her to death. She literally has tears in her eyes. She is begging you not to go back in there. And he convinces her to go back in there. And that's shitty. That's a dick move. Like,
What?
if she's crying, doesn't want to go in there, I'd be like, we'll sleep wherever the fuck you want to sleep. Let's go.
We'd be sleeping out of that house. Cause there ain't no way I'd want to sleep in the living room. Like, I feel like I would be more scared to sleep in the living room where all the shit is happening that you hear all the time. You're in a wide open space. Like, I would want to be in like a closet or something where nothing in the room can happen. You
Yeah,
get
the
what I'm
room's not
saying?
big enough.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I would sleep in a closet before I slept downstairs in the middle of this giant open fucking room where all this paranormal shit's happening.
So the next morning, we see that Katie, who is sitting on the couch, and she is traumatized by last night's encounter. And we find out that she never went back to sleep because of how scared she was. And this is kind of what we've been talking about. Like, she's not doing good. She's so scared she won't even sleep. And you want to keep this going because it's fun and exciting for you.
Well, I think
What a piece of shit, man.
I think here around this time is when he finally starts being like, because when the ghost guy comes back, he's like, you can't just leave us here. Like, what do we do? I think when here now where shit starts happening in the daytime, I think is when he finds this picture. I think that's it.
Yeah, and we haven't gotten, in my opinion, we haven't gotten to that part yet where he makes that turnaround. Like, at this point, like, I'm surprised he's not like, you know what would make you feel better, Katie? If we pulled that Ouija board out of the garbage and we try to communicate with this thing again. Yeah, I mean, he's still on that kick where he wants to record it and keep it going, antagonizing it. I don't think we've gotten to his turning point quite yet.
It's like you go ahead and go to sleep, so I'll film when stuff starts happening.
Yeah, I won't help you, but I'll film it.
You know, at this point, if I'm him and I'm catching this shit on camera at night, I wouldn't even show her because I could see
Yeah.
how scared she was. Like, I would be freaked out and I would be like, I cannot let her see this.
Well, yeah, but he is still in the mindset that this is fun and exciting. And it's fun and exciting for him, not for her. So later that afternoon, while attempting to eat some lunch, the couple is jump scared by a loud bang from upstairs. Mika grabs the camera and runs up where he finds he and Katie's picture broken. Now, this is the interesting part. It's only broken over his stupid fucking face. And there is a big scratch over his cheek. So once again, both us and the demon are like, fuck Mika.
I love his reaction when he sees this.
Why is it
It's
only
just-
my face?
Well, the first thing he says, like, as soon as he sees it, is fuck. And I'm like, that would 100%, if I walked up and seen a picture with all this ghost shit and my face was broken, first thing I'd say is fuck.
Yeah, that's probably most people. Later that night, we see Dr. Fredericks arrive back at the house, but after only taking one step in the doorway, he feels an incredible sense of evil and that his presence there is making it worse. He pretty much immediately tells them that he can't stay and that Dr. Avery's will be back soon and could help them. He then rushes out the door, leaving Katie an emotional mess.
It's interesting at this point, too. He's kind of freaking out.
Yeah, I think the
he's seen
picture
that
thing.
picture.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's really shitty, but this is his personality. He's more upset that it wasn't her face that it was broken. It was his face. And now he's worried because it's, you know, up until this point, it's just going after her. So
Yeah.
He even though he knows it's real, he doesn't feel like he's in any danger. It's just her. So it's funny to him.
Yeah.
And now he's like, fuck. And if you remember, this ghost guy drove from out of town. He mentioned it the first time that he came there. He came from out of town. So this dude drove all the way there just to walk in the front door and be like, nope, you guys are fucked.
Yeah.
I can't be here.
After all this, we then jump to the couple in bed. It is 1:33 a.m. on night 19, October 6th of 2006. All we really see here is the sheet blow up around Katie and her foot slightly move a couple times. We then fast forward to 3:04 a.m. where Katie suddenly wakes up after feeling the demon breathing on her shoulder. She then wakes Mika up and informs him of what is going on. He gets up to investigate but doesn't find anything, and they both get back in bed. The next morning, we see the couple sitting in bed, and it is apparent that Katie is on the verge of a breakdown, as she informs Mika that she can feel the demon with her right now, and they have to do something. We then jump to the afternoon where Mika finally realizes that maybe a picture book from the 70s isn't the best place to get your info, and he decides to check the internet. Good God, this guy is dumb. So he ends up stumbling on the story of a woman named Diane Merger, who was possessed by a demon and shares the exact same symptoms as Katie. He calls his girlfriend over to show her this story, and when she asks what happened to Diane, Mika tells her she died from the possession. Which, by the way, I looked into this, and she died while the priests were taking a break during the exorcism by chewing her own arm off with her teeth and bleeding to death.
Good God, that's like the most heavy metal shit I've ever heard.
So I'm sure that this info is very fucking comforting to Katie. Good job, fuckface.
This is like, I feel like this Slipknot's next door. Somebody's gonna chew their arm off on stage. Like it's just that metal.
If my girlfriend's that upset about something that's happened to her, I'm not gonna be like, hey, come over here. I found some really terrible shit that's probably gonna happen to you soon.
Yeah, good news. This has happened to somebody else. Bad news, they're dead. It killed them.
By chewing their arm off, and they bled to death. We then cut back to bedtime again, where it is 4:31 a.m. on night 20, October 7th of 2006, and we immediately see some shit go down as the entity grabs Katie's foot and drags her out of bed and onto the floor. As her body slams on the floor, Katie wakes up screaming for Mika, but before he even wakes up, she starts being dragged by an invisible force down the hallway with the door slamming behind her. Mika jumps up out of bed to help her, but when he gets to her, she's already down at the other end of the hallway. After a few moments, he is finally able to wrestle her away from the demon, and they both run back to the bedroom, scared and confused. I just imagine Mika holding Katie while she is screaming and crying, and him just being like, dude, that was awesome. I mean, would it really be out of character for him to be like, that was fucking awesome, and I got it on camera?
Katie, do you think you could get drug off again by this demon?
What did you do to make that happen? Let's do it again, but I'll shoot it from the other side of the hallway.
I will say that this is one of the, I think, most memorable shots of this movie.
Oh,
when
totally.
She gets dragged out. Like the first time I seen this, it was legitimately fucking like scary. It was like, holy shit. And I think that this scene is the highlight of the acting of this movie. Like the acting that Katie does during this when she has this breakdown when they get back to the bed is incredible for somebody who wasn't like a known actress.
Yeah, it was really simple how they did this, where, because if you look, you see like one of her legs is kind of sticking out of the blanket, but the other one is not. So what they did was they just hooked a little tiny harness to her ankle, hooked up to a wire, and literally fucking pulled it from that back of the hallway with like pulleys and shit, and it fucking yanked her out of the bed and drug her ass right down the hallway. They actually originally, from what I understand, had carpet upstairs, and they actually had to rip the carpet up for the scene for her to slide down the hallway without having massive amounts of rug burn. So later on, we see the couple downstairs as Katie pleads to just go. Mika asks her to lift up her shirt to show the camera the marks from the entity, and god damn, this thing looks like it took a fucking bite out of her. Like, we see these huge red marks with tons of these like little teeth marks. It literally looks like she got bit by a big ass piranha.
Yeah, this is what I imagine like a bite from the Mothman or a chupacabra would look like.
We then skip to a couple hours later where Mika finds Katie sitting on the floor in a catatonic state, gripping a crucifix so hard that when Mika pulls it from her hand, we see blood. And we have finally reached the point, I think, where he's taken this seriously.
So serious, he burns the cross.
Oh, no, he burns the picture.
He does, and the cross.
Oh, I didn't see the cross in
Yes,
there.
he
Wow.
throws the picture and the cross in the fire, and I'm like,
Oh man, that's dumb.
yeah, if you're having, I'm not the most religious person, but if you're having like serious demon activity going on, you probably shouldn't burn any religious
Yeah.
symbols.
Yeah. Well, he was like, well, that's what they showed in the picture book.
Yeah, they were burning a Bible, I thought.
So, after failing to get Katie up so they can leave the house, he moves her to the couch and says that he is finally taking care of this shit as he lights a fire in the fireplace. Once he gets it going, he throws in the picture of Katie when she was 8 years old and apparently this crucifix and watches it burn. Later on that evening, Amika finds Katie laying in the bed wrapped up in a blanket. He wakes her up and tells her that the stuff is packed and it is time to go. But she has changed her tune all of a sudden as she tells him she doesn't want to leave now. Mika's like, what the fuck? And she then asks him to stay at the house with her. And he is dumbfounded at this response. That's because she's now possessed, you fucking idiot. How can you not tell that?
Yeah, I would literally make her leave.
Oh, I would drag her out of the house. Just like the fucking ghost dragged her down the hallway. So he gets frustrated with this and he storms off mad, and we then see Katie form an evil smile on her face. And we then jump to the final night, 1:27 a.m., night 21, October 28th of 2006, and Katie immediately sits up like the fucking Undertaker, all creepy and shit.
I love when she tells them it's okay. Like the last bit of her voice before it cuts off, they add some type of synthesizer or something over top of it. But when you hear that, you know it's over.
Yeah. So she gets out of bed, she turns around slowly and begins to stare at a fast asleep Mika again. We then see the covers slowly pull away from him and fall off the bed. She then walks over to his side of the room, standing right next to him, and just stares. And this goes on for about an hour and a half before she finally walks off. We then see her walk back around the bed and disappear down the stairs. This is actually when I noticed when she's walking, we hear that same sound that we've heard the whole movie from the demon. And this is obviously to show us that Katie's possessed by this demon. After a few moments of silence, Mika is awoken by Katie screaming at the top of her lungs downstairs. He jumps up in a panic and he runs down to help her. Once he gets down there, we then hear them both screaming for a few seconds. Then a struggle happens where we just hear him yelling and a couple loud thumps on the floor. After a few moments of silence, we then hear the loud sounds of the demon coming up the steps, and right before it walks into the light, it stops. We then see Mika's body come flying out of the shadows, slamming into the camera. Once his body hits the floor, we then see a possessed Katie walk into the room, covered in blood. She gets down on her hands and knees, smelling his body. When she then looks up at the camera, gets real close, and smiles. Her face then turns into a demon as she does this loud scream, and the screen goes black. We then see some words appear on it, and it says, Mika's body was discovered by police on October 11th of 2006. Katie's whereabouts remain unknown. And that is the end of Paranormal Activity. So he didn't get discovered for a whole 3 days.
Yeah, my first thought was he was probably in a
He's pretty gross.
pretty rough state of decomp.
His 3-day decomposition look matched his fucking personality.
Yeah, I loved his body flying at the camera. I remember the first time I seen this. You're waiting for this, for something, whatever this is, whether it's her or him or whatever it is, to walk up into the light, and then the body flies at the camera, completely threw me off guard the first time I seen this, but, the ending where she literally crawls up and is, like, smelling him, it's so, like, primal and animalistic and just fucking outright unsettling and creepy. I really enjoyed this ending out of the alternate endings I've seen.
Yeah, I'll talk about the alternate endings here in a minute, but I will say that when you take the loud screech we heard, the banging, the dinosaur fucking footprints and the powder, and that, like, piranha bite,
It is Big
it
Bird.
it makes sense when, she gets down there like an animal and is, like, smelling him, because what your brain is picturing in your head is not even somewhat human looking. It is this crazy fucking creature looking thing, and I think that her actions in the end go along with something like that.
I also really enjoy right before that when she's staring at him and the covers are pulled off of him. And it makes you think, like, are there multiple of these things? Like one possessing her and another one pulling the blanket off? Or does this thing have the power to possess her and still react to its environment outside of her body? And it makes you think, and it kind of shows you the power of this fucking demon.
So, one thing that I think would have been really cool though is if, that whole ending happens, like, she looks possessed or whatever, she runs down there, she starts screaming, he jumps up, he goes down there, but then when they come back, you find out that Mika is possessed and he kills Katie. So, because you get this whole movie where you think that you're like, this thing's gonna possess her, it's after her, and then you find out that this thing was fucking with her and it's really been possessing Mika the whole time, and this is why he wouldn't call the demonologist. And I think that would have been a fucking awesome twist at the very end.
I agree. That would have been a good twist. I wouldn't have wanted to see her die, and that's why I think the original ending that they used didn't go over so well. I think people really feel bad for her, and she's super hot, so it's really easy to feel bad for her. And people didn't like seeing her die, but I think that would have been a really, really interesting twist.
Yeah,
Especially being that, it's this thing's been stalking her since she was a kid. Its real intention is to take her soul. And to do that, it has to kill her. So it possesses him and uses him to do it.
yeah. I mean, if you would have got, on the screen, like, Katie's body was found, October 11th or whatever, and Mika's whereabouts are still unknown. Like, that would have just been an amazing ending twist, because we're all expecting the demon to eventually take over her. Like, we kind of get that idea about halfway through, and then it seems like it's not really fucking with him at all. And then if you could have just twisted that at the very end where it really takes over him, that's who it wants, and it's just, fucking with Katie the whole time. I thought this has been really cool.
That was its original plan. And then it's like, I hate this guy so much. I'm gonna have to possess her. Like, I gotta kill this
Yeah,
guy.
maybe.
I can't get in this body.
All right, so a couple facts for you. This movie contains no opening or closing credits. And although it was released by Paramount, this film is unique in that the studio's logo does not appear anywhere in the film. Oren Peli got the idea for the movie from a personal experience. Late at night, he was sleeping and a box of detergent fell off the shelf.
In the very house that it was shot in,
Yeah,
which is
well,
really cool.
what's crazy is that's it. That's the whole experience. So one box of Tide gave us a whole movie franchise.
Made
I would
Paramount
thought
a
it'd
lot of
be
money.
something more creepier than that, but
It's amazing how much money this movie made, and he got paid, what, 250,000?
he got 350,000. He did pay. So originally, Mika and Katie received $500 apiece for their roles, but when the rights were sold, they were able to renegotiate for an actual chunk of money. So I don't know what they got, but they got something out of that 350.
It's still, though, like, it makes me think of the Blair Witch, where those guys got paid $1 million, and they
Yeah.
essentially had to split the $1 million, and that movie went on to make hundreds of millions of dollars. When you talk about theater run and then, all the sales and everything that it's made, still probably makes a ton of money every year, and they don't see any of that.
So, Oren Peli spent a year redecorating his house prior to filming. The walls were originally stark white in every room, and there was no railing to the staircase. One thing I did notice in this is where I could tell the staircase had been put in because there's actually a chunk of drywall missing where I know he drilled in something to hold the fucking staircase there. But yeah, it's kind of weird thinking that that staircase had no railing originally. It was just stairs. So
That seems like it wouldn't get approved.
I agree. So let's talk about the endings. So there were 3 endings to the movie. In all 3 of them, the camera stays in one place. So the first ending, which is the original ending, the one that Spielberg said that they should change, it has Katie waking up, standing by the bed, and then going downstairs. She then calls Mika in a panic. Mika goes downstairs screaming and worrying, and then we hear him freaking out, and then he goes quiet. So pretty much the same of what we've seen. Someone is going up the stairs, and it reveals to be Katie with a bloody shirt and a bloody knife in her hand. She sits by the bed, rocking back and forth for hours. That goes by quickly. Her friend comes to visit her, friend Amber. We hear her downstairs freaking out about Mika being dead on the floor, and she leaves. Later on, the police arrive at the house. It's 2 cops. They see the body. They then go upstairs and find Katie. Then Katie kind of snaps out of this whole catatonic state. She starts panicking, wondering where Mika is. The police are telling her to drop the knife. She doesn't, and they end up shooting her and killing her.
Apparently, Steven Spielberg thought she was too hot to die too.
Something. The second ending is the theatrical Blu-ray ending, has Katie walking up and standing by the bed. The blanket pulls off of Mika to the floor, and Katie goes to stand and stare at him for about 2 hours. Then she goes down, she screams, he goes down, she kills him, and then when she goes back up, she's holding Mika and throws him at the camera. The camera falls, Mika's on the ground. Katie, it's this ending we just talked about.
I think all the endings are the exact same up until when she gets up. When after she kills him and she comes upstairs.
The third, which is the alternate ending, very similar to the original one up until Katie kills Mika downstairs. After that, she comes back up all bloody, closes the door behind her, approaches the camera, and slices her own throat with the knife that she killed Mika with. And this is the alternate one that you can watch on the DVD. So that's all the endings. That's the 3 endings. There were more endings, but they were not filmed. So, all right. So ratings and kill count. Total kills is easy. Mika. Woohoo. Good for us. Favorite kill, Mika, because it's only one.
He would have been the favorite kill if there would have been 20 people died.
Yeah. All right. So rating, you're up first because you picked it. What you got?
I gave this movie a 4.4. I had to think back really hard because, like I said, there's a stain on this franchise where it went and how bad some of the later movies got. And like with it being parodied a million times, I feel like I've seen this movie a million times. So I had to really think back of the first time I watched this movie. I love the premise. Think it's extremely creepy, super unsettling. The way it was shot, like a paranormal Blair Witch, made it very authentic. I think you said the name of what they call that, where there's no script.
Oh, like retro scripting or something like that?
Yes, some shit like that. But I thought it made it way more authentic. Nothing was like out of place and overdone. Most of the movie is there's nothing happening except in these nighttime shots, and a lot of times it's just like some slight banging or something, and I think that makes the movie feel so much more real. It's the same thing they did with the Blair Witch, where they don't overdo it. Like if in the beginning of this movie had everything that happens at the end started in the very beginning, it would have felt very non-authentic. I thought they eased into that ending very well, and it makes it feel real. Like well, not everybody, most people's heard some type of knocking or something in their house.
Or an ice maker.
Or everybody's heard the ice maker. But yeah, it feels a lot more real. I thought the acting is really Katie's acting in this made the movie. I think if you took somebody who wasn't good at acting and made the same movie, it wouldn't have been nearly as good. Audio was done really good. I think that's something that doesn't get talked about with this movie very much. But the way they do the footprints, some of the loud bangs, there's no score, so it's very, very creepy, kinda silent. They had these low hums that do come up, and that's what lets you know, like, some shit's about to go down. Thought that was really cool. The marketing was amazing. Overall, it's absolute classic found footage movie. If you're a fan of found footage, this is kind of a must watch in my opinion.
Yeah, I gave the movie a 4.5, so we're right in the same ballpark. It's always a solid watch. I really enjoyed the first 3 of these. The timeline for me gets a little murky after that. I really love the first one, I really love the second one, and I really love the third one. After that, I think it's because 'cause I'm just not that interested in them, but I get a little kinda confused about where the story goes. I know we do see Katie again,
I know, but the
but
just
it's very different.
one of them, when I was researching this movie, the ghost dimension or ghost dominion or whatever the fuck it is, there's a little girl crawls through, like, this awful CGI wall in her room, like
Yeah,
some
that's like the 5th one or something. Yeah.
yeah, and I seen that and I'm like, "Well, there's a reason I didn't get this far."
Well, there's one, it's like the one where the Hispanic guys are in the apartment complex, and they end up time traveling into the first one, which explains some of those, like, running up in the attic and stuff we hear, I believe, is, like, actually them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird, but the first 3 are really solid in my opinion. That's a really good trilogy. But I enjoy this movie, man, like, the effects for what they were good, the acting is good. I think Mika and Katie are a very believable couple for the most part. I probably woulda gave this movie, like, a 5 if it would did that ending that I came up with. You know, my only nitpick about it is I hate Mika so much, and it gets to the point where and I know it is realistic, but it's, like, almost like, "Man, if she's that freaked out, man, just call the fucking demonologist behind his back. Like, fuck it."
Ye yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's if I was gonna nitpick something, that would be it.
My biggest and only complaint of the movie is Mika, but it's not how much I hate him because I get like there's movies and there's characters, and sometimes you have movies with characters that you hate, and there's just that's real life. But it is more so that he still acts like, you know, they don't have the evidence. Like, he even says it at one point. I don't remember what the words. It's after like the screeching scene, and he's like, "Yeah, we've had a little bit of weird stuff happen." But I'm like, No, you haven't had a little bit of weird stuff happen. You've had all this like really
Yeah.
creepy, unexplainable stuff, and you're still acting like you really haven't caught any evidence to."
Well, all of this happens in the span of, like, 21 days.
And,
So,
and and keep in mind, there's been shit going on before this. It's why he bought the camera in the first place. So
uh
you got like Ouija board setting on fire and shit, and he's still like, yeah, we've had a little bit of things happen. Like, no, you've had literally as much paranormal activity as you can fucking take. Just quit acting like it's not a real thing.
yeah, that is if I was gonna nitpick about the movie, it would be some of his mindset or actions during it, but, you know, it is what it is. It doesn't really affect the movie that much to me. I will say I 100% agree with you about the sound. So, typically when I write these episodes, I actually start the week out by just watching the movie and just getting a feel for the movie and watching it before I sit down to actually write the plot and everything. And the first time I watched it on surround sound, and it was actually the first time besides being in the theater, I've seen it with surround sound, and it is 100% a movie that is way better with surround sound, especially if you got a subwoofer, because that, like, hum that we get every time this thing comes around is amazing on that. Yeah, man, it's a good movie, and it's amazing that it was made by a guy who just loved movies. But thanks to this, he got a career as a director, so good for him. I don't think he did any of the other Paranormal Activities, at least not the majority of them, as far as I know. But yeah, man, 4.5, it's good. I like it. It's a solid watch, man, every single time. So once again, we thank you guys for listening. Please give us a follow or like if you enjoy the show. Check out the websites, check out the socials. Next week is Hellraiser. I know a lot of you guys wanted it, and here you go. What was that? Oh, got an alarm that went off. That freaked me out.
Well, it's creepy.
Wow, that's so weird. Yeah, next week is Hellraiser. I know a lot of you guys wanted it, and here you go. You're going to get it. I can't wait to do it. Tell a friend, a family member, or the demon who has been following you around since you were 8 years old about the show. We hope to see you next time. Any last words? This show it was just sleepwalking.